Uh, am I audible, Maharaj ji?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Right.
My question was, when I was in NCC, National Cadet Corps, and the motto of NCC is unity and discipline, where unity comes first. So when I was in college, I used to think that why do they have this, what is this unity, importance of unity? And in NCC, it used to happen that all the cadets will get punishment together. They all used to stay together. That was used to be the tradition which was followed. And now when we look at the present times, so God's grace, colleges and schools have opened up, students have started coming in, and slowly offline activities are happening. Could you throw light that in during the college life, about the you mentioned about the philosophy of unity, about and you mentioned, what I understood from your talk was, you said that we are privileged, and there are many who have not, received the way, the schooling, shelter, the food, the the protective environment in which we have gone through, and we should give back. So you were giving us messages, but when I just look from the student perspective about how do they develop, one is unity among themselves as a students community, as a class, because at times we see there are some quarrels also happening between them. Miss X doesn't talks to Miss Y, Mr. X doesn't talks to Mr. Z. They have some college event. Okay, Miss X and Y will do one event, Mr. Z and D will do another event which they are interested in. So just come down from the student perspective, and just think about our student issues, if you could address them few.
Okay. I'll try in my own way. So I'll start off with a small experience of ours. Actually, in 2020, when there was the first break of the pandemic, so all of us were at a loss. How can we serve others? Because all were greatly frightened, actually. People were mostly keeping indoors. Because the Ramakrishna Mission engages in relief whenever there are such pandemics. Swami Vivekananda himself had engineered relief works during plague in Bengal. So people started asking us, Swamiji, won't you be doing some relief work? Gradually, we decided that whatever come what may, we'll engage in relief. There are well-wishers who started contributing. There are volunteers who came forth. We distributed a huge amount of food items, accessories. For 2 years, we have worked for more than 5 months, actually. It was risky. I also contracted COVID twice. It wasn't easy. It was almost frightening, I would say. Okay. But one thing it did was, in a sense, it lifted the veil from above our mind. When I watched even younger boys and girls afraid to get out from their houses, we have 5 schools here, actually, okay, in this Malda center. Our young teachers, when we tried starting the school, young teachers, they said, Swamiji, what will happen if we contract corona? I said, you see, for the last, that was in 2021. We said, you see, we have already conducted relief work for 2.5 months. I am still alive, because you see me now. Since I am alive and you are much younger than I am, you can also venture ahead. Try. Why should you be afraid? You must also have courage within yourself. What this did was, in the process, we discovered ourselves, actually. So this humanitarian approach, karma yoga, which Swami Vivekananda declared as the motto of the Ramakrishna Mission, in Bengali it says Shibo Gyane Jibo Shiva. There are a number of Bengali people in the audience I see. Translated, it would boil down to this, that considering men and women as veritable embodiments of the divine, serve them. Do not consider that you throw away rice, food items, and clothing to the poor. Instead, Swamiji said, you must bow down before them and say, Narayana, please receive these offerings from us. Great philosophy, okay? Not easy to practice. I remember we had gone to a place in rural Malda district. There were 400 people who had come to take food packets from us. And they had gathered all around. We had tried to systematize, gathering their coupons, but they were poor persons. And this food was available without a price because we were there to distribute. So at that time, systematizing them, controlling them, at that time, it's difficult to stick on to your concept of Narayana. Okay, you have got to be harsh, strict sometimes. So theory is one thing, practice is another. But I would often tell people that you see these food, clothing, etc., these well-wishers have given to us, including the government. And we have passed it on to the others, to the beneficiaries. But in the process, we have been liberal, we have been purified. Our mind has gathered strength within ourselves. So I watched one thing, the younger generation, especially during the service relief work we have seen, they understand this type of ethics all the more. If you ask them for rituals, they would say, why is Ganesha Chaturthi more important than Kali Puja? There are so many gods in the Hindu pantheon. How do you compare between the two? I remember during the first phase of the corona, we have a very big school here. A number of ex-students had come in with the offerings of money so that we can buy things. I was puzzled to see, asking us, some of them ex-students, asking us, Swamiji, will you really be using this money for relief? Can we go with you to the bazaar to purchase these things? We said, well, fine, welcome. So we took them in our vehicle to the bazaar, to the markets, and there we bought rice, dal, sugar, etc. So when they were convinced that we are really working properly, they also joined hands with us. Probably they would like more of rituals. If you had only burned candles and given flowers at the temples, they wouldn't have been attracted. This humanitarian appeal, this feeling for the poor, the downtrodden, karma yoga, this appeals to the young generation. Through this ethics should come in. Sometimes this feeling for the poor comes like a wave and then subsides. But unless you have a strong character for yourself, you can't go on with the idea of ethics. After a time, you would stumble, you would fall down actually. To stick on to an idea of service, you must have your spine erect. You must be a person with a character. Because there would be so much of temptations. People would say, would laud you to the skies. They would say, you have served us so much. You will easily lose your bearings actually. Soon you will find that what was important for them was the service, not you per se. So through service, you discover layers of your character. Karma Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita says, your own life also must be seen similarly. I remember some of the younger volunteers, when they would come to us, they would say, Swamiji, we are busy with office works, and some would say we are busy in the universities. We can serve on Saturdays and Sundays. That would be our time. I would laugh and say, you see, Bhagavad Gita says, not Saturdays and Sundays. The work that you are doing, whether at the university, whether in the office, or cleaning in the streets, each work should be considered as an offering to the Virat, the huge God that manifests as a society, as through persons. Every work is an offering to that God. So in that sense, every work has a different dimension. It has a philosophical side as well. It's not merely secular. Secular is translated as dharma nirapeksha, devoid of religion. It's not that. It helps in the blossoming of your inner self. If these things are taught to our younger minds, then they look at the student's life in a different manner also. They'll understand that your student life also is great. The Upanishad says, Chhatranam adhyayanam tapa. It says, Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na prashvasitabhyam. This is a line from Taittiriya Upanishad. There are a number of Upanishads. This is one, Taittiriya Upanishad. Pune has a very good tradition of Sanskrit learning. They are very good institutions where Sanskrit has a good base there. This line says, Swadhyaya, own learning, pravachana, teaching others, na prashvasitabhyam. You must not desist from these, learning yourself and passing on this knowledge to others. Both. There are teachers in this group. I had been a teacher for many years. We can tell from my experience, the learning that we had in our colleges and university days, that has only deepened as we taught them to others. Okay. So in this case, in this way, your life has a different meaning. It's not that you practice values and religion by going to the temples only. To the Siddha Vinayak temple in Bombay, you go there and practice religion. Then you come back, you don't have religion anymore. It's not that way. Or you go above the Parvati hills in Pune, then you have religion. Then can you come back to symbiosis? Then you, like a shirt, taking off a shirt, then you get rid of your religion values. It's not that way. It's a part of your life. It's a part of your being. That should be the idea. Okay? Thank you. Yes. Next.
Maharajji, I have a question from one of our teachers over here, Prajakti Gokhale ma'am. She wants to ask you, one side, we call ourselves a global citizen, but we see that people are getting very insensitive, intolerant, and aggressive. How to deal with such a contradiction? I would just like to add to it. Right now, given the political tension of our country, that we see how divisive politics has become and the intrusion of religion into it, people have really forgotten what the religion has been or how they should define it rather. I mean, they were questioned on their food habits, and now with the hijab row that has entered, how do you think that Swamiji's principles can be put forward right now? I mean, can stand as as for a social benefit to stop people from fighting among themselves for no reason? I mean, how relevant is that?
We have our own groups, WhatsApp group. I frequently mention in that group, women ought to speak more on the hijab role, because after all, hijabs are being put on by women. So their views should be considered as more important, not men, because there are a large amount of educated women now. So coming back to the core of the questions, it's not hijab per se. The core of the question, coming back to it, actually, Swamiji in his book, in Bengali, it's a very renowned book now, Bartoman Bharat, Modern India. There he says, you see, the lower caste had been throttled for a number of years, okay? Their rights have been denied. He appeals to the higher caste that you see it's better that you have great treasures of knowledge in your hands, accumulated through the centuries. It's better that you broadcast them to the other castes as well, to spread it amongst them as well. He wants the higher caste. Unless you do this, once they will rise, and then they will throw you to the ocean, he says. Okay? He says, the rise of the upper caste, he says categorically, Shudra Jagaran. I think many of you will be knowing this. Okay? So when you see this sudden, you see uprising, suddenly you see that people are reacting more than is expected from them. It sometimes also comes as a historic corrective as well. Just as the SC, ST rights, okay? The upper caste often argue that why should they get so much of rights? That's a valid question. In some of the states, it's almost that the upper castes are getting penalized. I know about Tamil Nadu because we have a centers on Tamil Nadu. Sometimes the total amount of reservation comes to 68%. Higher caste people of Tamil Nadu in many cases leave their own states and come away to the other states. Okay, because so much of reservation almost strangles them. It's almost that the lower castes are getting more privileged. Why? Why has that happened? Why could that happen? Because as democracy has come in more and more into play, then the historical corrective where the lower castes had been throttled for centuries, they have now come up. In fact, in Tamil Nadu politics, the DMK, ADMK, all of them, they'll depend a lot on the so-called lower caste actually. Okay, this too much of, you see about the hijab and others also, that also you can trace to this actually. For long, many centuries, Hindus had remained dormant. Sometimes it had been that they ought to have spoken up earlier. But suddenly now, they have found their voices. Probably politically. Probably they have been more aware of they being turning out of minority over time as Muslims increase more in number. So in that sense, they start asserting themselves. I won't justify it. What I'm saying is, you must go back a little and understand why it is happening. And it often happens that as saner voices start coming in, such propensities gradually die over time. But I can tell you, Swamiji also says in his books, he says that, see, in fact, he says, religion should be there according to adhikar, adhikari. A person who is not fit for renunciation must not take the path of renunciation, he says. People must try to be active in their respective lives. You remember the story in the Chandi, Devi Mahatmya, where Suratha and Samadhi. Suratha is the king and Samadhi is a Vaishya who doesn't want worldly pleasures. And Suratha, the king, he wants back his kingdom. Swamiji says the majority of the people in this world are like Suratha only. They should be given their rightful enjoyments, rightful ways of living. So similarly, if these are denied, at one point of time they come up and deny and want to take back these. So our country, after independence, 75 years have passed. These old scars, the English had been intelligent enough to divide the country along religious lines, so that this scar has been accentuated, okay, accentuated. They had gone away, but the division Hindu and Muslim, they have perpetrated here. It's not easy to bridge this gap, I tell you. Other than the democracy, votes that is, because numbers matter. Everyone wants to appease people according to the numbers, okay? Real feeling for the poor is not there. Often the question of democracy is there. Can we have such persons who really feel for the poor? Loka Kalyanakari can be there. In Maharashtra, we have, in the history, we have read about Shivaji. In fact, Shivaji's main fort was near Pune only. Is there? Am I correct? Is there? So you require such rulers, such kings, administrators with large hearts, with good characters. Then our paths would be better. Okay. And as this education, there must be more of a value content in education. I was very happy that the symbiosis launched on this seminar actually, because sometimes we have secular learning. Secular is value neutral. You read a lot of physics, chemistry, economics, biology. You have a great marks, but you don't mind cheating. You don't mind swindling money. That's not proper. Only having good results, a good salary, is this enough? But what teaches you what is right? Who teaches you the values? Should we read only about values in our houses from your grandmothers? Why? You ought to study your values also in your education institutions also. Unless you are taught a bit of values in the education institutions, the boys and girls would never consider it in the right light. They would never consider it as desirable characteristics. Because unless there is a bit of values in the curriculum, it never gets it proper recognition. So today, gradually the realization has come that value education must also form a part of character. Not particular religions, but values in general. Service to others, but sympathy for the different religions, sympathy for women, children, the downtrodden. Unless you have these values in economics, in physics, in our languages, education is not enough. Education is only skin deep. It hasn't got deep into our characters. Okay, these are my remarks. Thank you, Amrita.
I agree, Swamiji. I mean, right now, I think it's really important that people go back, take a step backward and try to learn about all these principles and teachings. I mean, it has become very materialistic now. There's competition. People want, like you talked about numbers. Everyone wants to, compete and battle it out.
Right.
But they really forget what the ethics should be. What is more important with regards to their personality and character development. Thank you, Maharajji. There's another question. Maithili Umranikar, one of my friends from MSc batch, she wants to ask you, as the world gets increasingly complex, there are increasing number of political, economic, and social ideologies. People and countries keep fighting amongst themselves. In such a scenario, does peaceful coexistence seem utopic?
Actually, since I'm sannyasin here, and in Ramakrishna Mission, we observe festivals of other religions also. Just to give an example, on the Christmas is also celebrated in a pretty good scale here. We sing Christmas carols, we read from the Bible. So we have an occasion of studying the other religions. In fact, we have our training center where all monastic members have to stay for 2 years. And there we have a course in comparative religion also. Okay. So we have seen that the different religions actually have originated depending on the problem at that time in that particular country. To give an example, Christianity originated in Israel. At that time, Israel was a part of the Roman Empire. When Jesus Christ was born, Israel was a part of the Roman Empire. Remember, in his during his very birth, a census was going on actually. Octavius Caesar probably ordered the census. It is considered the first census in the history of civilization. So the people of Israel were aware that they were being subjugated to the wills of the empire. So when the Christianity came up surrounding Jesus Christ, remember when Jesus Christ was alive, the Christian religion was not pronounced. Christianity, which was named after Christ, this name only came on later on. When he was alive, it was a sect within the Israeli fold or Jew fold. Okay. So even in the Christian today's rituals, you'll see many of the things that are being followed, those are remnants of things which were there in Israel of those days. Okay. If you see the history, you'll understand. Similarly, if you look at Islam, Islam originated in the deserts of Arabia. Okay. The dry deserts where even survival was difficult. You had a humid temper, lack of water, a number of clans fighting with each other. So even Muhammad himself had to engage in a number of battles. You see his biography. So every religion, depending on its origin, the mark remains in later years also. Similarly, in our countries also, in the different sects that we have, the persons who founded that religion, the rituals in his life stay on to some degree. What I wanted to say is, it is the same with political ideologies also. I gave you the example of communism. Okay. I had the privilege to study the economics of Marx, as I mentioned it. This thing I had studied in quite great details. Marx, Engels, Russia keeps coming on again and again in socialistic discussions. Even when you see people in India discussing communism, leftists discussing communism, they often would chant in the name of Mao Zedong, Lenin, Stalin, isn't it? So today you keep wondering, they were born in a different country. What relevance do they have for India? What is communism for India? So often those amalgamation of that theory for our country is not properly done. Even this happens for economics. Because all of you are students of economics, I'll remind you, second 5-year plan. Remember second 5-year plan? Prashanto Chandra Mohalanabish was largely instrumental in devising the second 5-year plan. So this second 5-year plan was largely borrowed from the Russian plan. Okay, Russian plan. One Feldman had devised the Russian plan, where big industries were gradually planned in Russia, and this was largely borrowed into India. In fact, among the different plans, the second 5-year plan is considered to be a landmark one, because their big industry is not only set up, even other industries which would cater to the big industry, say steel industry, you have iron, other industries coming up. So that was considered to be a chain reaction through which industry as a whole would rise. Okay. So what I'm saying is, when you see these plans, when you see the economic measures being taken, you'll see many of them are borrowed from other economics. Often people who study economics, as you are doing, as we had done, we had studied Western economics textbooks. So our thoughts are colored by Western models. Really, for India, does this model work? These things ought to be questioned today. After 75 years of independence, people ought to go to the grassroots to understand our requirements. Abhijit Binayak Banerjee, who got the Nobel Prize 2 years earlier, they have been trying to do such things, go to the grassroots and see how measures would apply for our country, not measures tried in America or in Russia or in England. For India, you ought to tweak it differently. Often we copy it directly. just as we write in the question papers, isn't it? Second 5-year plan. We memorize the plan measures and we write it down, isn't it? Or the Todaro model, migration. Don't you study Todaro migration model? Okay. Or this Ferguson and Gold consumer models, wonderful models. It's a delight to analytically. The question is, in India, would those work? So these are things for which values are necessary. You must think in the line of requirements of your society, your country. Then you are an independent citizen. In Israel, I tell you from experience, because I know persons who had gone to Israel. In Israel, every scientific discussion, they must be couched in their language also, not English. It must come in their own language. So this tremendous zeal, if it comes, love for the country, requirement for our society, then the more the country will rise. Okay. Complete. Yes.
Thank you, Maharajji.
Anyone has a question? Anyone else would like to unmute and ask? Please feel free to ask any question, anything it could be. It could be any topic, not necessary towards the topic. You can ask any question to Maharajji.
So, Barun, he had warned me about some other tricky questions which you didn't raise till now.
Yeah, I wanted to ask them, sir. So if no, does anyone has a question?
Yes, Varun, I have got
Yeah,
one question.
Prajakti. Yes.
Yes. Swamiji, namaskar. My question is just in this context that you said just now, that we have to explore our problems going through grassroots level and design our own models. So what, I don't know whether I'm making it correct, but our social structure and especially rural structure is very much influenced by very much lot of emotional values. People are very emotional in India, and how we can capture that emotional level, their family background, joint family system, and how we can make advantageous for our economy. Actually, if we want to design original economic models for India.
So let me answer as I have understood it. One fact we all must conquer is that our civilization has had a very long history. Say, as compared to England or America, India's civilization is a much older one. So throughout the centuries, through different ups and downs, our country has survived. Regimes have altered, okay? The British has gone. But the core tradition in the country, some core has stuck on, has remained, okay? So Swamiji would, when he had gone to America, he would, when he chatted with the Americans, sometimes he would be excited and say, you see, do you say that the British has brought culture in India? Who says? India was there for long. At that time, he would say, the English people were living in caves and would paint themselves blue. The meaning means they didn't have proper clothes on. By painting themselves, they would hide their nudity, or they would paint themselves blue. That's the idea, actually. So India has such a rich and ancient civilization that they can't compare, the other civilizations can't compare with India in any way. So if such had been the case, so there must be a string, a connectivity throughout the centuries, isn't it? So for that, us to have a feel of this connectivity, our learning also should incorporate these Eastern values. What I'm saying, Mrs. Gokhale, is that actually we in our economics classes, in our colleges, in universities, me too included, okay? I had studied in one of the best economics institutions in the country, Presidency College. We have had fine, wonderful teachers, but I'll tell you, because the very curriculum is such that you are tailor-made to study microeconomics, macroeconomics, all of them based on the model of other countries, okay? So our textbooks say macroeconomics, we had Branson, Ackley, Are these textbooks still there current? Other textbooks have come in. They were great textbooks actually. But we understood that these are models of Western countries. But such beautiful were the analytical schemes were that we are drawn to them. Think in that paradigm. We think in that frame. So can our economies, our villages, our traditions, can they be fitted into this frame? That's the question actually. So to explore this properly, we must go more to the villages. Okay. So about Swami Vivekananda, one thing admires historians today is a person largely without money. He traveled almost through all the states of India in those days. Only probably Mahatma Gandhi could compare with Swami Vivekananda, no one else. Most of our politicians, social reformers, they had been from the cities. They were from the urban background. So how could they be the voice of the people, of the rural people, or of the other states? Just to give an example, Ramakrishna Mission, we have to visit villages very frequently. In fact, in our Malda center also, we have 2 schools in totally tribal areas in the mango groves. Okay. I tell you, it's a process of learning that even at the almost age of 30, I'm going through. Because I've heard great speakers in my life. Okay. I've studied and listened to great economists, philosophers. I've been fortunate to have heard them. And I've also gone to a number of seminars as well. But this cannot compare with my going to the villages and learning from their experience. So that's a question of learning. If you want to be a social reformer, Swami Vivekananda would say, then he would say there are 3 criteria necessary. First is, do you have the feeling? In his lecture, he says these things. Do you have the feeling that thousands of your fellow human beings are leading the life of brutes without the basic necessities of life? He said in the lecture. Number 1. Number 2, if you have the feeling after that, do you have a concrete plan, a method by which your emotion can be worked out into practice? Brain, heart, then brain. Third is, he says, okay, you devise a plan, but when you want to implement that, your near and dear ones come with sword in hand and tell you, you are a fool. You do not know how to pursue your own career. Why do you be unselfish and ruin your own career? What is the use of working for your own people, for the others? In Bengali, we have a proverb, "Ghorer khe boner mosh tadiyo na." Translated into English, it means you eat in your own homes and go and graze the cattle and help and tend to the cattle working outside. You are spending your home funds and do useless work. Your relatives would warn you that do not engage in such useless things. Swamiji says, in spite of this, can you stick on to such measures for the poor and the downtrodden? If you can do this, then you are a social reformer. In fact, for a real economist, he or she is a type of social reformer. Economics is geared as a social science, is meant to have an improved society that must have an element of values, okay? That cannot be value neutral, cannot be only for profit maximization or utility maximization, okay? That would be insufficient to my idea actually. If such egalitarian, such great ideas can be incorporated into our teaching, to my understanding, our teaching understanding would be more proper. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Anyone else want to ask? Please unmute, because I have a question to ask before that. If in case someone wants to pitch in, just pitch in, barge in, and so that I will, if no one comes, then I will ask the question.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
Varun,
Yeah.
this could be the last question because
Yes.
I have
Okay.
to go out.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. My question, Maharaji, is I have observed, matlab, I've been teaching last 5 years. So now what has happened is our colleges have reopened, and some students have come in and some students have still not come in. Either they are fearful of COVID, no, or there would be some home issue, like Amrita has still not come in. Hopefully she's coming soon. And we are encouraging students to come to colleges. Matlab, they should come and attend in-person classes. Uh, and when they come to Pune, so some bachelor students have come to Pune, and what I fear, my fear is their lifestyle starts changing. I know have students now waking up till 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., and then not coming for the morning lecture to the college. Either they are attending from home, online, hybrid. So that one thing. Second thing which I heard, I overhear some of my master students. Arey, we'll go for a drink on Saturday. So some kind of these also this matlab, they have this thing. And I just fear that maybe some people may get carried away in like you mentioned about the company. You mentioned about the company that we choose. And third thing is, I see, matlab, I fear that this boyfriend girlfriend attraction. Now, I was also I am a student, and I also had an attraction towards a girl, and although I didn't had a relationship during my college. Well, I liked someone, but there was no more connection, and I remained alone only, which was good. But later on, okay, in PhD, it happened. That's a different thing. So just what I wanted is your thoughts on it. Now, students have started to come in. Any message that you have? In terms of company they choose, or not to get into intoxicant because of peer things. Now you are going together in one club, and just a few thoughts on that, so Swami Maharaj.
Some of my friends, when I told about when I told about this seminar here, I was chatting with them on the WhatsApp. They solemnly told me, "You see, Swami," they had been my college friends. They said, "You see, don't advise them too much on ethics, etc. Okay, because this is not the in thing here." Okay, so I ducked and said, "You see, after all, the topic itself is unity and ethics. So there has got to be a little bit of ethics into it. Whether you follow it or not, you've got to listen to it first. Okay? Some things you listen, then you understand probably you cannot carry along with it as desired. But why not listen to good things in the least?" So first things first, actually today's one of our teachers would say, there are two types of students. One are the larks, the other the owls. The larks are those who get up early in the morning. Okay. And the owls are those who are more comfortable at night. Okay, they like reading more at night. Owls and larks. Unfortunately, with more of electricity available, with more of mobile, more of internet connections, we have more of the owl variety than the lark variety. So it's rather fashionable. People would say that we stay awake till late at night. But you can ask the doctors even that actually the human system, the body, it requires rest. It too has a clock going on. Early to bed and early to rise is the way to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. Early to bed and early to rise is the way to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. So the point is actually, this is not an easy thing to practice. That is, to go early to bed. But in the Ramakrishna Mission educational institutions, we have a large number of them, I can assure you. Because at the Pune Symbiosis Institute also, there are many students who have come over from Ramakrishna Mission institutions. Am I correct, Varun?
I just
Isn't,
know
isn't
few, one or two I am aware of. Those who
yes,
have
yes.
studied, maybe someone can raise their hand if they want to just say that
Acha,
they are from.
I think our teacher Ishita also mentioned it.
Yes, she's
Yes,
from.
yes. There are many students who've come from Belur and from Narnapur.
Right, right, right.
In fact, one of them
So,
may be here right now in the audience, Shubhadeep.
right, right. Actually, I think Shubhadeep Majumdar, he also gave a comment just now. I saw that. Actually, when they go through this, because I also incidentally had been a student of the Ramakrishna Mission School. When they are students, they feel almost, means they feel difficult to go through the routine. It's almost army type, Spartan. Early to bed, and early to rise. We have meditation sessions in the morning and the evening. Plenty of games are there. The fixed study hours. And this systematic lifestyle, you almost start revolting against it initially. Okay? But after a number of years, you see the utility of it all actually. One of my teachers would say that you see, a person who gathers knowledge slowly and then writes in an examination, he also retains that knowledge for a longer period. But those who cram at the last moment and gorge it in the examination hall, they quickly forget what they have studied. So this process of acquisition of knowledge and properly assimilating it also requires a gradual process of acquiring, systematic study. That is, every day, suppose you have 5 hours of study. But if you go on doing it every day properly, then the process of acquisition also is proper. Actually, to be a proper student also, you must have a proper lifestyle for yourself. If I tell this to students, sometimes students can feel that we are being denied enjoyments. But I can assure you, Ramakrishna Mission institutions have very, very good students, lecturers, speakers, and teachers in most of the institutes of higher learning in India. I have had the privilege to go to many of them, visit many of them, and was surprised to see many of them coming from Ramakrishna Mission or had the background in the Ramakrishna Mission. Swamiji had believed that education is the panacea to all evils. Panacea means a medicine which heals many things. Panacea to all evils. If you can give the right kind of education, then many diseases would go away. But for this structured routine, which many of the hostels of the Ramakrishna Mission teaches their students, helps them a lot. In fact, students, when they are there in the hostels, they feel almost throttled. But amazingly, after going away, they see the utility of it all. Okay. As I said, if you can acquire things slowly, you can also retain that for a longer time. And for this, you require a certain rein in your character. Okay, there's a verse in the Upanishads which say, I think some of you have heard the name of the Upanishads actually. There's one Upanishad which says, the name of the Upanishad is Katha Upanishad. There's a wonderful verse, it's almost poetic. It says, Param Chikhani Vyatrinat Swayam Bhu Tasmat Param Pashyati Namtaratman Kashchid Dhira Pratyagatmanamakshat Avritta Chakshur Amritatvamitsan. He says, you see, when the Creator God created human beings, He created the Indriyas, the eyes, the ears, the nostrils. And then He struck them and said, go out, go outwards. And thus the Indriyas, they look outside. They see good visuals, listen to good words, seek for nice smells. That's fine. But it's ads. There are a chosen few who want to look inwards. Kaschit dhira pratyag atmanam ikshat. With a desire to see the great mine of knowledge that is within, they close these indriyas. Why? Because they want to delve deeper, meditate. Because the wealth of knowledge that is within, education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. Swami Vivekananda says, you need not discover it from books, libraries, teachers, or the internet. It's there within you. It will take time to discover, to realize that it's already within you. Teachers, the internet, the libraries are only providing you the keys by which you unlock that treasure. But for that, you first have got to have a rein on your own self. It gives the simile, just as a charioteer keeps the rein of the horses in his own hand. And then the horses do not lead you astray. It takes you on the right path. Similarly, if you have senses in your control, then your personality will go on the right track. Otherwise, you might have initial flourish, good results, probably a good job as well. But somewhere you can lose your balance. It can land into a crash. For the long run, not for the sake of others, for your own sake, you have got to have a rein on yourself. It's very, very essential, it says. Okay, Varun, I didn't elaborate on all the details. I gave you the essence.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you, Swami Maharaj.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj Ji. We have, crossed our time long back. So I'll quickly ask Purva to finish off with the vote of thanks. And it has been a wonderful session. So glad to hear it from you. Thank you. Purva?
Thank you, Amrita. And definitely Swami Tyagarupanda Maharaj, excuse me. It was a wonderful, enriching session. We have a lot to take from this, like be it the way you started off with actually connecting philosophy with our economic theories, which we learn in the classrooms. I think that was the best way to give or provide us with these philosophies. So thank you so much, Swamiji, for coming here, for blessing us with your knowledge. I would also go ahead and like to thank our director, ma'am, Dr. Jyoti Chandiramani, for giving us this opportunity to organize the webinar. Our learned faculty for providing all the assistance we need in this. Then I would thank our IT department for making this online event possible, and all our organizers who made this a great success. Last but not the least, all the participants, the students for whom this program was organized and whose participation encouraged us to create more such events. So I thank you all and wish you all a wonderful evening ahead. I would not extend the session more because we are already short of time. So thank you so much, everyone.
Varun, a small request on my part.
Yes,
It has been quite a long session. Just for the sake of listening, because if someone wants to listen afterwards, you can break it up, the main lecture and the question and answer session, in 2 parts. Otherwise, 2 hours of lectures and interaction, I believe most won't be able to carry through the entire thing. You can divide it into 2 parts if you like to.